Welcome to section 14 of the Grand Tour of Northumberland. In this section we are going to be visiting the final resting place of some very interesting characters. We're going to be seeing a 14th century tower, a tithe barn and some amazing crags. So join us for section 14.
Digging through a closet with walled cities, past lives and boxes, music absorbed till it seeped from my skin. Can't stand to hear it. Means more to me than photographs. Pictures of backyard and northern sunsets are all that exist in my mind. Freshly cut lawns and daytime sprinklers, spider webs on a gray wooden fence. I remember the convenience.
We start section 14 at St Mary's Church in Great Swinburne, where we left off from section 13. This field here and the field across the road there was once a medieval village called West Swinburne that was destroyed by the Scots in the 14th century and completely abandoned in the 16th century. Over there where those trees are was an old Bronze Age fort. This here is St Mary's Church at Great Swinburne. It was built by Thomas Riddle, son of the Jacobite Thomas Riddle, sometime around 1840. The cross is dated 1858. Sadly, the church is closed, so can't go inside to have a look. This strange building behind me is called a tithe barn. It dates from the late 18th century. In the past, farmers once had to give 10% of their produce to the church, and this was stored in the tithe barns. This is an example. Okay, this is the only dodgy bit of the walk. We've got to do a little stretch of the A68, which used to be the old Roman road, Dere Street. Very busy road, so you got to be careful. But Tony Robinson of Time Team fame and Blackadder fame, he did a walking series where he claimed to walk Dere Street. He didn't. For starters, he started off at the wrong Roman fort, and I don't think he walked the A68. This here is Colt Crag Reservoir, completed in the late 19th century. It's part of a much bigger interconnected water project in the northeast. This is alive with midges. Strange building, dated 1884. It's like an old boathouse, doesn't it? Probably why it was an old boathouse. Got a good view. Yeah. No unauthorized water sports. No swimming, no fires. All dogs must be kept on a lead. Danger sudden drop, danger deep water, danger soft ground. Back casting. Where I'm stood now was once the site of a substantial village called East Swinburne. Now it's called Little Swinburne. It was destroyed by the Scots in the 14th century. Now only the tower remains, and a couple of farm buildings over there. The tower was completed around 1415, possibly as a result of the Scottish raids. It's not very safe, so best to be viewed from the outside, besides lots of nettles in the middle. And those stones are at risk of falling there. Very impressive, but it needs some work to preserve it. Well, quite a lot of those stones look as though they're going to fall at any minute. This here is St Adrian Church in Rockland. It was built in 1100 AD by the Umbravilles of Prudhoe and remained part of their lands until 1226, when it passed to the Archbishop of York in compensation for damage caused by Robert Umbreville. It remained part of the York Minster's lands until 1851. When it became part of the Diocese of Durham. Now the weather's turned on us, it's starting to rain outside there now, it's quite windy as well. So I'm not sure how much more filming I'm going to be able to do, and we'll see how it goes. But there used to be a small village that once existed with the church, but this was wiped out by cholera in 1847, reputedly brought by a returning sailor. St Aidan is the final resting place of Lord Beveridge, who is attributed as being the founder of the welfare state.
The security plan in my report has three sides to it. The report proposes, first, an all-in scheme of social insurance, providing for all citizens and their families all the cash benefits needed for security, in return for a single weekly contribution by one insurance stamp. The benefits are to be adequate in amount and to last as long as the need lasts. The report proposes, second, a scheme of children's allowances to be paid both when the responsible parent is earning and when he is not earning. The report proposes, third, an all-in scheme of medical treatment of all kinds for all citizens. The national minimum is a peculiarly British idea. I hope that when you've been able to study the report in detail, you'll like it, that it'll get adopted, and that so we shall take the first step to security with freedom and responsibility. That is what we all desire.
Thank you, Sir William.
Although he preferred the term social insurance because he was an anti-status liberal, in other words, an anarchist who is against any form of rulership or state intervention, which kind of clashes with the idea of being a lord. Despite being a humanist, he, along with Churchill in the 1920s, believed in eugenics, the improvement of the human race by preventing certain groups, largely governed by poverty, from reproducing. So despite coming up with the idea of social security, he had a bit of a dodgy past. The churchyard is also the final resting place of the ashes of Tom Sharp, the author of Porterhouse Blue, Blot on the Landscape, and Wilt, which earned Sharp the title of the Master of British Farce. However, the most interesting person to find St Aidan's as their final resting place is Constance Leavitt. In 1927, she became the first woman to be granted a pilot's license and one of only 20 British female flyers. In World War II, due to an increased demand for pilots, she was recruited into the Air Transport Auxiliary, where she made the rank of flight captain, the ATA equivalent of squadron leader. She got to fly bombers and fighter planes, including Spitfires, from the factories to the airfields where they were needed. These here are Sweet Hope Lacks. Although the first lake was built here in 1730 by Sir William Blackett, the current lakes were built in the early 19th century by the Stobbart family. In 1905, the estate was bought by Sir Charles Parsons, who invented the steam turbine in Wylam, the village where we started the grand tour.
Steam from the 19th century, a century which produced one of our greatest engineers, Charles Algernon Parsons. In 1876, Charles Parsons became a student apprentice at Elswick Works, Newcastle upon Tyne. His first turbo dynamo, the prototype of all modern turbo generators, was constructed in 1884. It had an output of 7.5 kilowatts and operated at a speed of 18,000 revolutions per minute. The success of Parsons' first machine marked the beginning of a revolutionary change, not only in the history of steam, but also in electrical engineering. In 1889, Parsons foresaw the development of larger machines for power stations and founded his own works at Heaton, Newcastle upon Tyne, for this purpose. In 1891, he built the first condensing turbo generator in the world. Parsons contributed freely of his knowledge and discoveries to scientific and technical societies. His versatility was remarkable. Parsons had brought power to mankind.
However, with his death in 1934, his daughter was forced to sell to the then Labour government, who turned the land over to the Forestry Commission in 1947. The first Viscount Devonport bought parts of the estate in 1954 from the government, and the current Lord Devonport completed the reunification of the estate in 1965. The lakes are currently run for commercial trout fishing and outdoor activities by Sweet Hope Adventure. These here are Great Swinburne Crags. It's a very popular place for rock climbers. Not be many rock climbers today. It's on and off rain all day. Wait till you see the views here. Awesome. It's a long way down there, and the rocks are very slippy with the wet weather. That one there is amazing. Looks as though it's carved almost. That has to be weathering surely, but amazing. And just look at these views. And Cheviot over there. This is a brilliant place, so beautiful. I could spend all day playing on these crags. It's absolutely awesome. I'm like a kid at a playground. If you follow the crags, eventually you'll come to a wall. You just follow the wall around, and there's a gate over there. When you go through the gate, you just follow back across this way. There's not much of a path on the other side. This is where the fun begins. The arrow points straight off the edge of the cliff, and that's the way you got to go down. Up to now this walk's been quite easy, but now it gets a little bit challenging, and it's a lot of fun. I'm going straight down there through all that heather. Heather gets in the way of your boots, so it's a bit, you have to take your time, basically. And then the path follows along here, this green bit. Yeah, it's difficult to see where the path is. As you can see, you have to work your way through the heather. And it goes down there, and a straight drop down there. That's what we've just come down. That crag over there looks like a face, the nose or the mouth. That's where we came down there. I've took a little detour from the path to have a look from underneath. The path just continues on to Ridsdale, where the walk ends. But have a look at the size of these boulders. Don't know if you catch that from down here, but there's that ledge that I was sat on that overhung the cliffs. Pretty cool seat. Trouble is, it leans backwards, so if you lean too far back, it pushes you over the top. Very cool place. There's a path that goes along the bottom, but it's very boggy. Absolutely awesome place. Great Wanny Crags. And finally we end up at Ridsdale, which is the end of section 14.
Cheers.
So then Neil, how was that one?
This one was okay. It wasn't the best. It was a little bit long, but the worst thing about it was that it was the weather. I think Nick's going to explain that this is more of a scenery oriented walk, and we just didn't have the weather to appreciate the scenery, so I found it long and wet and flat. There's some good points in the beginning, and then at the end when we come to the crags, that was really good. It's worth doing for that, especially if you've got good weather. But there's not much in between. But at the end, the very end, there's a nice pub called the Bay Horse Inn. It does very good ale. This is, makes you see pretty much drank it all. But this is Portland American Pale Ale. It's really nice, highly recommended. Got a packet of scampi fries going on over there, and Nick's got some bacon. What have you got again?
Bacon fries.
Bacon fries. And we've just had a bacon fry, scampi fry showdown. Scampi fries wins. They're much more unhealthy. So yeah, it's a decent walk, but make sure you do it this one when you've got the weather, and you'll appreciate it a lot more than what we did. Yeah, I'll mention it. So we were actually going to like camp out tonight and do a double. So we're going to do this walk, section 14 today, which we've just done, camp, and then do section 15. But because of the weather and it's looking a lot worse for Sunday, we've decided to knock the camping on the head, which is a little bit unfortunate. But I'm sure we'll come back and do something like that again in the summer when we get the weather for it. So yeah, that would have been great to do a camping one, but we'll get that next time.
Yes, as you probably saw in the video, the weather was just awful and it kind of spoiled the hike. It would have been a really good hike if we had the weather, because there's some spectacular views to be had, but we just didn't get them. And at the beginning we had some history points, but as Neil said, from now on it's more about the scenery than the history. There are history points along the way, but it's increasingly we're going into the wilds of Northumberland, and there are less people, and where there's less people there's less history. So we're never going to get the same as what we had with the Tyne Valley.
It's a good point. Less people, less history.
Not until we get to the coast, any case, or possibly some of the borders. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to comment below, hit the subscribe button, and share with your friends on social media. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Cities, past lives and boxes.